When it comes to project-focused productivity, you can choose every day and every month and every week and every quarter what projects you want to focus on and schedule those projects into your system so that on a daily basis you can see only the projects that you want to focus on that specific day, rather than seeing all your projects in the backlog. I've recently written a post about this, elaborating on this concept, and in this video we are going to see how you can implement a daily focus automatic refresh in Notion and then in Coda. In Notion, using Notion and make.com to create the automation, and in Coda using the native automation feature to ensure that your daily focus refreshes daily. Let's start from Notion, and here we have a very basic setup, and this is just because in this video we're going to go through the demo of how the logic of the system works. We don't need to build the whole system, that you can custom build by yourself, or I'm going to build actually a whole template in multiple platforms for a project focused productivity system where you can pick your focus for the day, for the week, for the month, for the quarter, and so on. And in this video we focus on the daily focus, and the idea is that every day, if you are a knowledge worker or a cognitive worker, you might have many projects in your life and in your professional life. That might be especially true if you work with clients, for example. If you offer services or you have an agency, you might have many client projects lined up, and at some point that might feel overwhelming if you don't track anything about those projects. The daily focus, or the focus today checkbox as part of the system, is meant to let you decide exactly what projects do you want to tackle today, and all the rest can wait in the backlog. And then the next day you ask yourself that question again: what project do I want to focus on today? And then you make progress on those projects that you decide to focus on specifically on a daily basis. And then on a weekly basis you can reassess your judgments and your priorities for the next week. Then on a monthly basis you can review and adjust your priorities for the month and for the quarter, and so on. So that's the conceptual level. On a practical level, what you can do is every morning, first thing, you can pick exactly what projects you want to focus on. And let's say we have this Notion database here. It is very simple. That's a demo database for a projects database where you have one page for each project, and then you have a checkbox where you can check what you want to focus on today. So let's say this is morning, and today I want to focus on project 1 and project 3. So once I've done my selection, I can go to focus today, and here I will see only the projects that I want to focus on today. So this is where the action can happen. And if I have a full-on project management system, then I can open the project page and I can see all the tasks for that project and just execute. So the organization part of the system is picking what you want to focus on today, and after that it is all about executing the work to make progress on those projects. And that's how over time progress can compound with more clarity than what you might have without having a clear system tracking your projects and what's going on in your life, whether it be professional or personal. So these are the projects that I want to focus on today, and so far everything is pretty smooth. Now let's say tomorrow, if I come here, I will see these projects still in my focus today view, unless I uncheck these boxes manually at the end of the day. Now ideally, however, this happens automatically. So what I want to have is that if it is morning, I want to check these boxes to decide exactly what I want to focus on today. Then I operate in this view, and the next day I want these two to be automatically unchecked, so that I don't need to remember in the night to come here and uncheck the boxes and then go back to the drawing board in the next morning. But this can happen automatically, so that the only task that I need to do from an organizational perspective is to only pick what projects do I want to focus on today, and that is in the morning. So to make this automation happen, we can use make, that is make.com, formerly Integromat, and that's an automation software among many automation software, where we can automate this process of refreshing the checkbox on a daily basis, once a day, maybe at midnight, for example. So let's see what that automation could look like. Now here I'm in Make, and I will create a new scenario. And the first app that I want to choose as the trigger is Notion. So I will type Notion here and get the Notion app. And here we're using the Notion API, that is Application Programming Interface, to automate the process of refreshing checkboxes. So we are programmatically automating a process that you would otherwise need to do manually in Notion every night. So in here, we will do watch database items as the trigger for this automation. And from here, I can try and search by the database name that I have in Notion. And you can see that the database is shared correctly with my bot. And so it pulled the database ID automatically. Then here I can set the limit. And the limit is how many results do you want whenever this automation runs. So that's the trigger. And if you have a lot of data going through the automation and being pulled from the automation, then this limit is helpful because you can define how many of those bundles of data do you want to go through this automation. The higher the limit amount, the more operations you will consume in Make, and so the higher the price for your Make plan will be. That is more of a strategic decision or pricing decision, if you like, to ensure that you limit the consumption that you might have in terms of operations per month. That is the limit on the pricing plans of Make. So in here, I'm just gonna put a random number for now. And then here you can choose where to start from pulling data. That could be from now on. And that's okay with me. So here we are watching the database item. And I made sure that this database is accessible by the Make bot by going to the three dots. And then here there is add connections. And this is where you can find all the connections that you have in your account. And since I already set up the connection with Make, then this is where I can pull it from. And you can see here I have my Make as well as Integromat, that was the former name of the bot or of the app, connected to this database. And thanks to that, I could pull the ID automatically through a search query. Now, all I want to achieve here is that at the end of the day, every day at midnight, I want the projects that have a checkbox checked to be unchecked, so that the next day I can come here and nothing will be on focus today. Everything would be on all projects, and I can just select the projects that I want to focus on today or that day specifically. So that's the trigger here. And the trigger is by updated time. So whenever there is an updated database item, this automation will trigger. Next up, we want to add a second module that is still Notion, and that is update a database item, because we want to refresh the checkboxes. And so search, let's do again a query here to search for the database. You can see it found the ID, and now it outputs the structure of the database, all the attributes or properties as they are called in a Notion database. So the first thing that we need, and that is a required field here, is the database item ID. That is the ID of the page that we need to update in this case. And we can get this ID dynamically from the previous module, and here we can map it. You can see database item ID. If I click on it, then it will be mapped on my database item ID field, because we want to use the same page from the trigger. Next up, we have the fields. We have just project name and focus today, because that's our demo database in Notion. So the project name, we don't need to update that, so we can leave it empty. And the focus today will be no, because we need to uncheck that box. And so then we do OK to save it. Now, if we were to leave this automation as it is right now, that means that every time there is a project that is updated, regardless of what the update is, this automation will continue and it will uncheck the box, even if the box is already unchecked. And that's not really what we need, because what we need is actually to only uncheck the boxes from those projects that have the box checked. So we need to add a filter in between the first module and the second module. And that filter will be only continue if, and here we can map the properties, focus today, and you can see when you hover over it, you can see the data type or the attribute type. In this case, that's a Boolean. That means a checkbox, yes or no, true or false. And I will do focus today. And then here I can see a few operators that I can use in my filter. Since that's a Boolean, I can scroll down all the way to the Boolean operators section and do equal to, and then here I can pick what it needs to be equal to. In our case, we want the automation to continue only if the focus today checkbox is true. So I can do curly brackets, true, close it. And this is a native variable in Make. I typed curly brackets, but that's just a way of speeding up the process of using a Make variable. that you can also find otherwise here under settings. You can find true. And so I could have achieved the exact same thing by just clicking on this and using this as the variable. And usually whenever you have a filter within make, it is good practice to add a label to it. So we can add if focus today checked, so that you know exactly what this filter is just at a glance. And the second best practice is to name your scenarios in make, because you might very easily forget about what this is about in a few weeks or months. So let's say this is focus today, daily, refresh, and that's your scenario ready to run. So to recap, the scenario will be triggered whenever a project is updated in Notion. If the checkbox focus today is checked, then it will continue and it will uncheck that box, so that the next day you have that box ready to be checked again if you want to focus on that project again. Now we need to make sure that this automation doesn't run often, because this is a daily process that you follow in your system. So in here we can decide how often we want it to run, and in this specific use case we want it to run every day at midnight, or if you prefer another time of the day, that's perfectly fine. For example, if you work at midnight and you want to refresh your daily focus in the morning instead, that is fine. You can just pick your time here. And that's the automation setup, and let's run it. Let's assume that we have reached the end of the day. So the automation will run automatically, but right now I'm just going to run it manually for the sake of this demonstration. Otherwise, once you set it up, you can just turn it on and it will run in the background automatically every day at midnight, in my case, to refresh your daily focus and uncheck those boxes. So you can see right now our setup in Notion is that we have these two projects that I want to focus on today, and then here we have all the projects. So let's run the automation and pretend that we are at the end of the day. So I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna choose where to start. Let's do all, so that we can also start from past data that I updated before creating this automation. That is the case in our example. And then I will run once. And you can see that two bundles or Notion pages have passed through the filters, despite in the trigger we have 4 different bundles, and these are the 4 projects that we have in Notion. So we have 4 bundles, but only 2 of them passed the filter, as you can see here, because only 2 of them have the focus today equals to true. And so for those 2 projects, the action module updated the checkbox and unchecked it. So you can see here the specific bundle, and here you can see all the properties, and you can see that the focus today was set as false. And if you go to Notion, we can see that on focus today there is nothing right now, whereas on all projects there is everything, or all of our projects. And so the next day you can come back here and check the box and repeat the process, which then becomes very smooth and worry-free. And that is how you set up a daily focus refresh in Notion using the help of make.com or similar automation software that you can find out there. Now let's go to Coda, that is coda.io, and here as well you can set up your own systems similar to what you might do in Notion. And we have the same exact structure here with a table of projects that we want to refresh every day, and whatever we pick will end up down here for the focus of today. And that's just a simple demo for this video. So let's say we're going to check these 2 boxes here, and in Coda we do not really need to use the help of make to achieve the automatic refresh. We can actually set it up natively within Coda, although there are limits of how many automations you have per month based on your plan, and you can find out more on the pricing page, or just by going to your Coda doc, going to settings, automations, and you can see the limit that you have. On time-based automations you can have 100, or depending on your plan this will vary. So here I'm going to add a rule that is time-based, because here we want to set up exactly the same logic as we did in make, that is every day at midnight I want to refresh those boxes that are checked. So time-based, it is going to be every day, and let's do at 12 a.m. that is midnight. Next up we will add an action, and in this case we don't need specifically a filter like we put in make, because actually In Coda, you can also reference views of tables like this one. And so we can just programmatically refresh these projects that are in this view. So I will do modify rows, that is the action here. The table is focus today, that's the view that we have here. And we want to apply to all the rows in this view, because whatever is here, it means that the checkbox is checked, and that's what we want to refresh daily at midnight. And the values to update are focus today equals false. And now we can test the rule, and you can see that those two projects have been updated and the checkbox is not checked. And this would run every day at midnight unless you run it manually. So let's reset test and test again. So if I focus on these two, they will appear on my view here, that is focus today. And then once the rule will run, or the automation will run at midnight, those projects will disappear from this view, but go back to the main view where the next morning I can pick exactly what projects to make progress on. And that is it for this video. That's a demo of how you can automate a daily refresh of your project focused in the overall concept of project focused productivity, where you actually pick your projects on a daily basis, weekly, quarterly, monthly, yearly, and focus on those projects to make progress on them, rather than trying to organize the work and getting lost in the minutiae of the tasks of those projects, and most importantly, not getting overwhelmed in the breadth of projects that you might have going on at any given time. That is how you can make it in Notion with the help of Make, and we also saw how you can make this in Coda with the help of native automations, and in particular time-based automations that you can run every day at midnight or whenever you feel like. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and see you soon.